Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Joan here, and today's video is going to be a very special one. It contains family history. During the holidays, a task dawned on me thanks to my cousin. They had asked me to look through old photos they knew we had kept in our house, which actually were albums piled in a container because we just renovated the attic, which was the previous location it was in. And no, I'm not talking about digital photos, but instead I'm talking about physical photos here. However, there was a hurricane that happened over the summer that flooded our basement, where the photos were, and many of them sadly got destroyed. It was our fault for neglecting them in the basement and not knowing any better. This was my Lolo, aka grandfather in Tagalog, in my mom's old car, and he was the main person who collected all these photos and put them in photo albums. Some of the photos unfortunately just stuck together and couldn't be fixed. So I took the opportunity to organize them, whatever left was surviving, using this plastic container that contained smaller containers. I have a previous video putting Polaroids in them, but this also works too. I labeled each container with a certain theme/topic to help me figure out what goes where. Then I would scan them to my computer just in case another weather catastrophe or disaster occurred again. At least this time, I would now have digital copies. Maybe some of you don't know what it feels like going into a supermarket or drugstore and dropping off film with your parents and then waiting to get prints back. However, I remember numerous times accompanying my mom to develop film to get prints. Scanners, cell phones, and even Instagram were not a thing back then. This actor on the envelope is who my mom wished to marry one day, but that's another story. It was a time-consuming activity to put these prints into photo albums. My family definitely took the time and effort to create this time capsule. Looking at the vintage photos from the time I wasn't even living on this planet yet is so surreal. Looking at how my great-grandparents look like, to my grandparents, to my mom and her siblings as kids, to my mom even as a teenager, wearing a lot of different outfits, to photos of my grandparents visiting America for the first time, to my mom living in America for the first time, and my dad working in New York City. To then seeing my parents raise two daughters, my best friend, who's my sister, bonding with memories I can't even remember without seeing these photos. To my mom dressing me up in what she thought what was fashionable at the time. To see me hold a camcorder in my hand without even knowing that I'd pursue it as a career. To see how I wrote as a kid to my Lola, aka my grandmother. To see how I was already rocking a bucket hat back then too. I think the hardest part of archiving photos are remembering the photos of my dad. The times you wish you could relive one more time just because it just seemed too good to be true, and now that person is no longer living. As a kid growing up in America, I was accustomed to recognizing my cousins in the Philippines based on looking at their photos, seeing how many of them there were, and it gave me anxiety because it was just me and my sister over here in the States, and there were 20 plus of them over there. But they always seemed so happy, and I was always curious what life would be like visiting them over there. But eventually, I would go to the Philippines every other year, seeing my family and having my cousins get to know me. When I was younger, I admit I always wanted to be in the spotlight, always wanted to be in front of the camera, always wanting to just draw attention just because I was the oldest child and I felt that I had the skills and the talent to perform and do anything and everything. This is me in kindergarten with a teacher named Miss Mango, and I could not believe that was her last name, but true story. And also during that time, during Halloween, there would be a competition, costume competition, and my mom made me dress as a pumpkin for 2 years, and I won both years dressed as a pumpkin, and I dreaded that costume, but didn't have a choice back then. When it came down to school academics, I always had honor roll, straight A's. My parents always expected that, and so if I didn't know the answer to my question, my dad would always say, "How come I left the classroom without asking the teacher?" There was a time in my life that I always thought I was part of the Mickey Mouse Club, and yeah, that didn't happen. When our school decided that school uniforms were a thing, I dreaded it, and also what more with the gym uniform. It just made me feel like I wasn't an individual anymore and I had to conform to what everyone else was doing. My family didn't go on that many family vacations. I just happened to realize that we only went on 2, which was Hershey Park in Pennsylvania and Disney World in Florida. And my dad was such a jokester. He loved to pull pranks and just make us be so scared for our lives, thinking that something was going to go wrong, but in reality nothing ever was going to go wrong because he was always there to protect us in the background. And I think you could tell throughout the photos that I've been sharing that events are really important in our family, such as Christmas. My dad never wanted us to open presents until we went to church. That was a thing. And birthdays was a huge deal. Always had to celebrate each other's birthdays and be present. Looking back at these photos, I start to contemplate what it would be like if my family never documented and took pictures in the past. Would all these photo albums just be blank? Would I even reflect back as I am now? Would I believe the stories of my childhood? How could I show people proof of my past if there was no visual proof? That I sang songs on the karaoke in every Filipino party I went to? That my mom made me join a pageant? That I even wore braces so my teeth could be straight before high school? That I could see the progression of my hair growing in school photos because my mom always cut my hair short. That I even had a communion because Filipinos be religious like that. That I always wore the color red for some reason. And that there was proof that I was ever happy as a kid since I laughed or even smiled. I hope to one day be able to share these photos with future family members of mine, to continue to pass on these photos for future generations, and hopefully they don't get destroyed like these other ones that I couldn't fix, but at least now I did something with them. And I hope that if you guys have photos that you still keep somewhere, locked up somewhere in a closet, you should definitely take care of them because you don't know who will appreciate it in the long run later on in the future. I know for sure that despite I wasn't living during these times where the people in these photos were, it's pretty cool to see how my family was before and how the times were back then, especially because things are totally different now. So thank you again for watching and stay tuned till the next video. It's the end of the video, so don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It will help me in the long run. Okay, bye.